or just skip through it?
Yes, and we're not talking about this podcast because you're not going to want to miss this tonight. A lot of news related to the spear, the AARO big interview that happened this week. The guy from North Carolina, whose name is escaping me, that Ross Coulthard interviewed. A lot right here on the Hannibal TV UFO podcast with myself, Hannibal, and the UAP researcher, ufologist, none other than UFO Tarheel. Casey, fresh off of some bourbon tasting, which he is a bourbon connoisseur, as some of you
Oh
may
man,
know.
yeah, I don't know about connoisseur, but we'll go with it.
Hey,
Definitely a
why
bourbon
not?
lover. Yeah.
What was Ric Flair drinking when you saw him? Did he have a drink with him?
I think he was just drinking beer.
Yeah.
He
Interesting.
was just hanging out. It was one of those type festivals where everyone was just drinking beer. They called it the weenie roast. I
Okay.
don't even know if they do it in Charlotte anymore, but it was called the weenie roast. And this was like, oh man, this was like late '90s, early 2000s,
Oh, wow.
and Rick was just rolling through the crowd on his own, So, and of course, he's in Charlotte, so he's being berated by the woo. Everybody was doing that, so you automatically knew Ric Flair was over there.
That's got to be quite a life when people start wooing whenever you're around.
Yeah, yeah.
But he's just getting melanoma skin cancer treatment
I saw
this
your
week, I
videos on
believe.
that.
Yeah. So we wish him the best there. But what do you want to start with? And why? I don't know why his name is escaping me because I just watched a 25-minute video on him. And I also forgot to mention he was on Weaponized as well, right? Or am I getting confused? Weaponized, what the hell would they? I'm just coming back from the gym. I've
Are you
watched
talking about
five.
Bledsoe?
Yeah, Bledsoe. No, it wasn't. Weaponized was all about this cloud video where
Right.
it's hard to see this new video of this supposed UFO in a cloud. But I'm gonna let you take the reins here, and I'll follow along.
Yeah, and I apologize. I don't know what's going on with my StreamYard lately, but I'm still lagging somewhat. I don't know. I mean, I'm even wired in, Hannibal. So, like, what the hell am I doing wrong here? I'm supposed to be a techie guy.
Yeah, you were visiting some real high tech place recently too. I
Yeah.
forget, but the pictures looked real cool.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I'm like, okay. So, normally I'm on Wi Fi and I'm doing fine. And tonight I'm wired in. I do a speed test and I'm up over like 500 megabytes per second download and over like 40 megabytes per second upload. I do a speed test and I'm looking at my signal on StreamYard and it's weak. I'm like, what the hell am I doing wrong here? Anyways,
Yeah.
hopefully I'm not lagging too bad with my audio.
I think it's like a 3 second lag, but well, I will bring this up just as we get going on this. We
Yeah.
have a new channel that's going to be just UFO stuff, because we know there is a percentage of UFO and wrestling fans that are together, but there are some that do not like the wrestling videos, and there are some wrestling fans that do not like the UFO videos. So it's going to be a bit of a process, but overall, if you are a UAP fan, there's going to be quite a lot of UFO videos coming soon to the Hannibal TV UFO channel. We also have a The Hannibal TV UFO Facebook page you could look up, but we would suggest you guys find that. We'll be very interactive on there, and there's going to be, because I wasn't ever overflowing it because I didn't want to anger the wrestling fans too much. There's going to be a lot more UFO content on that other channel, which Casey will be posting directly to that channel too. So please subscribe. But we'll let Casey get back into it here.
Yeah. I would say I mean, we can go with the biggest thing that I guess was released this week, which would be, in my opinion, if you want to know from what I think is the biggest thing that released that had all kinds of little nuggets in here, was again back on top of the news again. Tim Phillips, former deputy director of Aero, he's back on the news again, right? He did his interview with Steve Greenstreet from New York Post a couple weeks ago. That was posted, and then he did one with Mick West. And I apologize, my video is lagging again. Hopefully, my audio is coming through clear. But he did one with Mick West, and that was super interesting because I got way more out of it than what I got with the Stephen Greenstreet conversation. So, like for example, he brought up the fact that the UFO or the UAP caucus was getting blocked in skiffs and getting blocked top secret information by guess who? Not the DOD, not the CIA, not the Pentagon, congressional
AARO?
leaders.
Really?
Yeah, congressional leaders are blocking. So you've had on here, Hannibal, Tim Burchett. Tim Burchett is part of the UAP caucus. If the UAP caucus rolls up in a skiff and they want to know some top secret information, guess who was blocking their access? According to Tim Phillips, who was blocking their access to that top secret information or being read in so that they could have the full picture? Congressional leaders. So, that is wild. That is the wildest statement I've heard in ufology probably this year. So, I mean, people just think about that for a second. You are going into a hearing or a skiff or a compartmentalized informational briefing that's supposed to be top secret. You walk in there, you're Tim Burchett, and you start asking questions, and the people go, "Well, I can't tell you about that." And they go, "Well, why can't you tell me about that? We're in a skiff. Like that's what this damn place is for. You're supposed to be able to tell me the good stuff in here." "No, I can't tell you." "Well, why can't you tell me?" "Your boss said that you can't be told that." That is insane that we have congressional leaders in both the House and Senate blocking information to their subordinate committee persons, like Anna Paulina Luna. I'm sure Burleson is part of that UAP caucus, Tim Burchett. So that is a massive statement because now that puts a lot of the onus on the congressional leaders, right? Why are the congressional leaders blocking this? And why are they, filtering information and not letting the people like a Tim Burchett or an Anna Paulina Luna? Why are they not letting them get the full picture? Now we need answers from those people. I think we need to demand answers from the congressional leaders. The congressional leaders I'm assuming it would be people who are like House speakers, Senate minority and Senate majority leaders, people like that. So we need answers. That is a massive statement. And if anything, they need to subpoena Kozlowski and I don't know if they still can, but they need to bring Tim Phillips back in front of Congress and have them talk about that and make that statement. And we gotta figure that out. So that is a massive statement. You giving us Tar Heels a bad name? Oh man, why? Why am I giving Tar Heels a bad name?
I don't know, but
So
I think we're gonna have to get Tim Burchett back on here to have a discussion about this.
I live down from Con Artist Cribs. That's what I know all
Yeah.
about that. And hey, I'm not.
I'll
I'm
be
not.
honest, I was not familiar with Bledsoe today until you told me to watch some of his latest stuff, and I don't know, man. I don't get a vibe of he's trustworthy. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, William Runner, you've not been watching the show if you think I'm like buying all the Chris Bledsoe stuff. I am one of the strongest skeptics, and I bring the goods. So I'm on X all the time, bringing the goods on. I won't call myself. I'm definitely
You
not a hate.
harass him, right? Not harass, but you'll comment and ask questions about him.
Right. It's not harassment. It is definitely substantive. I bring it. And I know you're kidding with it. But like I bring it, man, and I'm telling you, all I'm doing, I use his own words against him. I use his own, so and we'll get into that. We can totally get back into it because Bledsoe was back in the news this week talking to Coltart when they were out at Contact in the desert. But I never come after Chris with anything that's not substantive. It's got to be something I can back up, and I'm using his own damn words against him. Every time I bring up something Chris Bledsoe, his followers attack me, and I'm saying I am presenting to you the words that Chris Bledsoe just said, and you're pissed at me. So you're mad at me, and I've just played you a video of something Chris Bledsoe said. Why are you mad at me? I mean that. But we can get into that. But back on the Tim Phillips thing, another wild thing he said was that the military is dropping spheres and eggs. Okay, that's crazy too. So he's claiming that the military aircraft drops the spheres and eggs because they used it. And I guess this makes sense. He's saying they use it to calibrate the sensors on the aircraft. So I guess it makes sense. So think about this. You're a C-17 or a C-5, C-130. Those are our big military transport planes. Or hell, you're even a fighter jet. You're an A-10 Warthog. You're flying, and they want to know how well the sensors on your radars can pick up something on the ground, and they drop a sphere on the ground, and then they try to see if they can locate it somehow and to calibrate how well those sensors are aboard the aircraft. It makes sense. Or at least that technical explanation of it makes sense to me. So that's a wild statement. That is because we had the Sphere video, right? You were watching that today
I
about
did. I'll just quickly. I will address William here, where Bledsoe does say he was living in a mobile home, but he said he was living in a mobile home on the property where his house was being built. So he wasn't necessarily saying that he was poor, but very interesting to know about the house. 900,000.
So, yeah, I'm trying to think because what he told Coldheart in the interview this week that posted was that he had lost everything, right? And he said, I was living in $1 million home and I lost it. And we moved into a mobile home that didn't even have a floor. And that was a statement he made to Coldheart. He said he went from his kids having a swimming pool and all these things to having to sign up for school lunch assistance for his kids. So that was his statement, was that, he was staying in a $900,000 house. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. I don't know. I mean, he definitely admits to having $1 million home, but at what point did he get out of it or lose it? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I've not dug in that far. But the only last thing that was said in the Tim Phillips interview with Mick West that I thought is very interesting that people probably are not picking up on. So the whole thing about the Tic Tac UFO, the Tic Tac happened, and then people flew in on the aircraft carrier, the Nimitz, and took tapes. They took recordings of it, and they took evidence, and they left. So Tim Phillips said the exact same thing happened to them back in the 80s. He said he was stationed out in Arizona, and they kept seeing this weird shaped thing flying around. They thought it was a UFO. Well, in their debrief, which is what happened in Fravor's situation in 2004 with the Nimitz case, there's always a debrief after they go out and they do this operational test. They come back in for a debrief. Well, in the 80s with Tim Phillips, he comes back in for a debrief, and they tell them to keep their mouth shut, and they take all their tapes. The exact same thing that happened in the Tic Tac UFO thing. What it turned out to be in Arizona that Tim Phillips saw was the F-117. So I don't know if you want to present or share screen, Hannibal, if you want to show people what an F-117 is, but it's the triangular thing, right? It's the triangular looking, gnarly looking. I think Lockheed made it or somebody. It's a black triangle looking. I'm not talking about the B-2 bomber. It was like a gnarly looking, very sharp black triangular looking aircraft. And apparently they stumbled on it in Arizona. And I bring that up. Yeah, there you go. So you can imagine in the 80s, you see that right there. I'm sorry. If I saw that flying around my house today, I would still think that
Looks like a triangle UFO.
Imagine seeing that today. You would
Yeah.
still think that's pretty wild to see today. So you can imagine 40 years
You'd
ago.
look at it. Yeah, other than the two things at the back, but I'm sure who knows how many different versions there are of these things.
Yeah, but imagine looking up and seeing the silhouette of
Yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah.
And, so
Oh,
that's,
yeah, because you wouldn't see that part. And I don't know what that's called, the tail.
yeah.
But,
But
yeah.
it's pretty wild. And I mean, if you think about that, here is the point that everybody's missing. The point is that was being tested out there in close enough proximity to where they could see it. And they weren't supposed to. So, and just think about that for operational integrity of like making sure that stays top secret. You would think they would fly that in an area where there's no chance
Yeah.
of anybody seeing it, not even their own people, right? That aren't read in on the program. So I just think that's important to think about because a lot of us have used the premise of, oh, well, they wouldn't fly the Tic Tac out there and risk it being seen by unwanted eyes. Well, they flew the F-117 out in Arizona, you know. So, yeah, that thing is badass looking. Look how cool that is. I mean, and that thing was made 40 years ago. And I mean, Tim Phillips says that he went to Area 51.
Yeah, right there you could see how it could be, well, not in that one, but the underneath shot.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's very interesting because I think he dropped us some nuggets there. I think we should keep Tim Phillips talking. We can talk all the shit we want to about Tim Phillips. Oh, he's, he was part of Arrow and he's covering up this, he's covering up that. He was in Area 51. They popped the hangars for him so he could look at the stuff and he confirmed. He said, yes, in hangars at Area 51 is some crazy, crazy looking stuff. And he said it was spaceship looking stuff. So, I mean, we got to keep this guy talking. I mean, that's my take on him. People can beat him up all they want, but you've never, I guarantee you, none of y'all listening and myself or you, Hannibal, none of us have had that guy's level of
Yeah.
access.
He's not, and as I said, there's good information in it, but the parts I've had to watch, you got to watch in sections because he's very flat, but he's giving good information, but he's not selling you anything.
No.
I get the impression he's honest.
Me too. Me too. I really do. I think the read I get on him is he's just like, man, here's what I saw, here's what I know, and I just think we got to keep him talking. I hope every week somebody's pulling that guy in for a podcast. You know, but he's just dropping all these nuggets of information. I didn't know that the military was dropping eggs or sphere-shaped objects to calibrate sensor systems aboard our military aircraft until he said it. And even Mick follows up on that in the interview, and Mick says, so are you saying that the egg that Jake Barber got? Now, he did say that he has never heard of an egg being dropped at that size. Because remember, the one that Jake was retrieving, Jake said was the size of an SUV, like 20 foot long. And Tim Phillips does say, no, I'm not aware of a 20-foot long egg being dropped as a sensor calibrating device. But he said, I think it's a very strong possibility that these eggs or spheres are some type of calibration device. So I just think that's interesting, probably something to keep in mind. But we got to keep that guy talking for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Hopefully, he'll do more podcasts as time goes on. I don't know who that guy was who he was doing the podcast with.
Mick West, yeah.
Oh, that was Mick West. Okay,
Yeah, Mick is not the reason why you don't know is I don't think Mick has been doing a lot of YouTube content lately.
right.
There's just been too much stuff for because his main thing, right, is analyzing and doing the debunking and doing the looking at videos and stuff like that. So I think he's been probably busy doing
That makes
that. But
sense.
I mean, I'll try. I think we should definitely try to reach
Oh
out to him,
yeah,
see if he wants to come on Hannibal TV. Let's get him on and let's talk to him. And
yeah,
because we would be good to him. We would not mess with Tim Phillips. I've asked Mick West to come on this channel because
yeah.
I think you have to keep the detractors intact. Do not cancel these. I brought it up on the last episode. These people that hate the UFO antagonists don't. Like, you have to have those intact. We cannot all be in this like UFO circle jerk. It has to be, you have to have a few people in there that, you know, change it up, that make us try harder, that make the evidence have to be stronger. I mean, you have to keep the strongest detractors in there. Do not make you fall. And I'll bring one thing up about Bledsoe that people don't realize. His son, Ryan, posted on X a while back, and I asked him a follow-up question on this, and it got a lot of likes on X. And because I don't like the way that Ryan Bledsoe asked this, Ryan Bledsoe posted essentially, and I'm going to paraphrase, it was like a passive aggressive comment where he pretty much said, what I see in ufology today is a bunch of non-experiencers, meaning people who have not seen a UFO, angelic orb, abduction, nothing like that. And they're running around acting like they're know-it-alls, but they're not know-it-alls because they've never experienced anything in their life. So what Ryan was pretty much saying in that post is, if you have not seen an alien, a UFO, an angelic orb, or been butt raped by an alien, then you're not part of this conversation. And I just think that is wrong. I don't think, if you are going to cut out non-experiencers like me, I've never experienced anything. I've never seen a UFO. I've never seen an alien. I've never had one do to me things like what happened to Whitley Strieber, where they're like taking his sperm and everything. I've never had that happen to me. But you're telling me that I don't have a place in ufology to share my opinion and to share my perspective because I've never experienced anything? So I don't agree with that at all. And if that's where the Bledsoe family's coming in at, is like, hey, we're seeing angelic orbs, listen to us or shut up, then I don't like that perspective at all. Because pretty much that is what cultism is. You're trying to run a cult. You're saying, this is my thing, this is what we do, and if you don't like it, you need to be quiet and don't mess with us. That's not how the world works, my friend. That's not going to sell at all, because it's going to be met with skepticism. Anytime you make an outrageous claim like, I'm seeing angelic things that come, and oh, by the way, they can heal people, and I can ask them to heal people. That's what they say. It's going to be met with skepticism, and you're going to have to get over that. That's just going to be something you're going to have to deal with. And so that's something that's definitely interesting in this world. I don't know, man. Hannibal, maybe you've had experiences, and that's great if you've seen UFOs or aliens. I've not seen anything yet or had any experiences. I've had a couple things happen, but I can't attribute them to anything other than probably like sleep paralysis, or having a bug fly in front of my camera while I was filming.
Yeah, the closest thing I saw was for 3 nights in a row here during the New Jersey drone time. There was a lot of activity going on in the air, unusual activity, and it looked like there was certain activity going on, and then from further out, there was like the more normal looking craft from the. We're right near McConnell Air Force Base here, which is one of the main Air Force bases. Which I've actually heard on UFOs and nukes. There's actually at least 5 nuclear bombs supposedly being stored here. But anyways, and this has only happened for those 3 nights. And the entire time I've been here, I was coming home from the gym, and somebody's pointed out to me to look up in the sky. Did that seem unusual? And yeah, I saw unusual stuff. Was that our stuff searching for drones? Was it us watching unusual drones? Was some of it stars? Who knows? But those 3 nights
Mm.
stand out to me from all the nights I've been here, and I've been here off and on since December. So that's the closest I've come, other than very realistic dreams. But I do believe those are caused by listening to UFO audiobooks as you fall asleep.
See, man, I mean, you're wise beyond your years, because you're exactly where I am. Um, I shared with some people recently that I tried this CE5 thing one time here at home. I had an afternoon to myself, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this Greer CE5 thing where essentially it's just meditation. Don't think I like did anything weird or anything like that. I'm sitting in a chair meditating. But you try to like geolocate yourself from afar, and then you narrow into your location. So I am a creature of a galaxy. I'm a creature of this planet that's part of this solar system. I'm a creature of this one planet in this solar system. And you keep narrowing in. And I'm on this planet. I'm on this continent. I'm in this area of this continent. And you just keep narrowing in, and that's usually how you're supposed to create. And as you're doing that, you will get into a meditative state. So much that it freaked me out when I was doing it that I started hearing like a loud ringing in my ears. And I actually had to Google it after to like figure out, okay, when you get in a deep meditative state, is it normal to start hearing a loud roaring or ringing sound in your ears? And I actually found that a lot of people report that. But nothing happened other than just me getting in a deep meditative state. That night, I had my first return of sleep paralysis, and I hadn't had a sleep paralysis episode since it was like 20 years ago. I mean, it had been a long time since I'd had the sleep paralysis demon that everybody talks about. I have the same sleep paralysis demon as everyone else. I just hadn't had it in like 20 or 30 years. But it's weird that night, that day that I tried the CE5 thing, my sleep paralysis returned, and it wasn't the sleep demon anymore. I actually saw an outline of like 3 weird head-shaped things, and it was blurry. I can't give you definitive look. And I chalk it up to what you just said. It was on my mind. I don't think people understand how strong the brain is, like how the brain can conjure up images for you. Because sometimes I go to bed that night and I dream about something that was heavily on my mind during that day. And I don't chalk up. I will not go tell people that aliens visited me that night. I just tell people that, I had it on the brain that day. I was trying to do this meditative thing. And then, oh, and by the way, I had a dream or some type of like sleep meditative thing later that night. So that's what makes me wonder sometimes when I start hearing people's, like John Blitch, we've talked about him before. When I hear him on Cold Heart or these others and he's sharing his experience, I'm like, man, some of what he's talking about sounds just like the sleep paralysis episodes I've dealt with. So, yeah, I don't think we fully grasp how powerful the brain is, right? And how it can really get you into some modes that we just don't realize. It's the same thing with ghosts. People saying, well, I saw my cat is dead, and I still see him every now and then out of the corner of my eye sitting on the stairwell. And I think people need to realize that maybe that's because so many times in your life that has happened, and your brain it's like pulling that image up and getting it ready to load, and it's not going to load because the cat's not there, but it still doesn't stop it from readying the image and having it ready for you to see. So there's like this temporary glitch that your brain throws up the idea that that cat's going to be sitting right there because it's your brain has been trained to see that cat sitting there for 15 years, so I just think it's little things like that, where we just don't fully understand how the brain processes and how it's trying to work and give us what we perceive on a daily basis.
Yeah, I've definitely had one ghost experience and several other times that I think could be possible confusion, but we're not going to get into that. It'll be in my book, which will be out later this year. Lee Hart 21 has not experienced UAP, but he's had paranormal encounters. Do you think there's a link? Some people say there is, like at Skinwalker Ranch. Other people say there aren't. I find it hard to grasp when they start to say, well, Bigfoot and aliens and ghosts are all connected. I don't know. That's where it kind of gets jumbled up to me anyways.
Yeah, it's too busy, right? Um, yeah, the Bigfoot conferences where they're trying to pull off UFOs too. It's like, oh, that's just it's
Yeah.
too
I
much.
mean, I got some minor interest in Bigfoot, but where I'm interested in UFOs is because UFOs could technically affect the future of humanity
Hmm.
and the world, where I don't quite think Bigfoot is going to. If it exists, I mean, if we end up finding it, it's really not going to change how we live our day to day lives. Whereas if we find out there's multiple higher intelligences that could take us over at any time, or who knows what their agenda is, they could be like playing with us like toys, or they could be using us through
Yeah,
deals. One thing that Jim Semivan has said, and I think we've talked about this before, and for anyone that doesn't know, he was part of the CIA for a long time. May still have some connection, but he's been involved with To the Stars. He has said that there has been agreements made. He would, or someone said, would it be safe to assume that agreements have been made between non-human intelligences and governments? And he said, I feel it'd be safe to assume that. So he didn't go out and say it, but he pretty much confirmed it.
yeah, and I mean we've heard it time and time again. I mean, we talked about it a few weeks ago when we showed your Paul Hellyer clips, because Paul always claimed that we were, America was working with several different beings, or creeds of aliens. Israeli people have said that. So yeah, it's definitely something to where, um, if there is some type of agreement, you know, I would just love to pull some of these people in front of us, like a semi-van. You bring him up. I mean, if people have time now, there's been too much content come out late in the week this week, so I was not able to get through all of it. But I'm trying to get through the Booga Spear release that happened today. I'm trying to get through
That's been
the.
all over the news today too. Lots of people have opinions on it.
I haven't got through it, so I honestly don't know all that they shared. I will share some information on a video analysis from that in a minute. But, Chris Ramsey released on Area 52 the John Ramirez interview, and I think he was CIA. So we have 3 CIA people now. Let's bring them in front of Congress. Let's bring Jim Semivan, John Ramirez, and Ron Pandolfi in front of Congress, and let's just roll with it and see what happens, because these guys are saying some wild shit, and they were in the CIA. So why are we not talking to them? Well, maybe we're not talking to the people that we want to talk to, because going back to the beginning of the show, Tim Phillips says congressional leaders are blocking access to the UAP caucus to know all the good stuff. So when we have fans in here in the notes saying, why don't we call in front of Congress Lockheed Martin? Why don't we call to Congress Raytheon? Why don't we call to Congress Jim Semivan or John Ramirez from CIA and have them spew some of this wild shit that they're saying about alien hybrids and crossbreeding and all this stuff. Well, maybe it's because congressional leaders are blocking it at every turn. We need to ask our congressional leaders, why are you blocking that? Again, if there's nothing to any of this bullshit, then why are we blocking anything? Why does stuff get blocked all the time? That's my question, is especially when they came out with the Schumer amendment um, to one of the defense spending bills a couple years ago, the ones, that Mike Rounds and Senator Schumer worked on, and they were going to have a UAP panel that was going to, like a tribunal that was going to look at UAP evidence and disseminate it to the public. And there was going to be eminent domain claimed over UFO materials and things like that. And that all got blocked. And now we're hearing congressional leaders are blocking the damn UAP caucus from getting access to stuff. Why is there all this blocking going on? You can't sit around and say this topic isn't real and there's nothing to it, and then say, oh, in the same time, but they block access to all this stuff related to it. That doesn't make sense. I mean, there's either something in that closet or there's not.
Yeah, that's definitely very conflicting, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I did not see this latest CIA person's interview. This is the first I'm
Yeah.
hearing about it, so I'll
I've
have to
not got
check that
through
out.
it either. Yeah, his
I
name was John Ramirez. I think someone said that he was supposed to be on with Coulthard at one point, and he
yeah.
denied Coulthard an interview, according to him. But
I will say, and I already told you this, I do have a friend that works for Canada's version of the FBI, and he referred to the spear thing as quote unquote grift. So who knows? Stephen Greer
yeah,
was there. One of the,
hmm
as you said, all these people. So
Danny Sheehan.
yeah, he gave a speech.
Yeah, front row, Danny Sheehan, Greer, Representative Burleson. That was wild to see a congressperson at the Boogosphere thing. And, yeah, I've been a pretty strong critic of the Boogosphere thing too. So I got to look at it. The things that worry me, we've already posted our analysis of the Boogosphere, and we talked about it on here about what was retrieved versus what they're showing now looks completely different sizes. But if people have an X account, go watch an account by, it's called Pro Pixel Video Analysis and Research. He's at Billy Krizik. But Pro Pixel Video Analysis and Research. He did one on June 12th. He posted about the Boogosphere. And I'm not saying he's saying anything conclusive of it, but he captures a couple things of one of these spheres flying in the sky, and it's rocking a little bit. So, it's either being pulled on a line or something's going on, or it's being flown by a drone, and we don't see the fishing line and the drone out of sight. So imagine someone flying something on a very thin piece of sheet metal that's been molded round, right? It doesn't have to weigh that much. And they got a really heavy duty drone flying it overhead on a string, and they're flying it back and forth. And they even have something on the inside of the sphere to keep it level, like gyroscopically level. And he even shows what that looks like in space, because there's an astronaut showing off that capability of something gyroscopically on the inside of a cylinder, keeping it level, and it'll make the outer shell rock a little bit. And he shows that in his video analysis, and it's clear as day. The thing is like rocking because it's trying to stay steady. And little things like that just bothers me. Now, again, that could be the flight characteristics of this UAP if it's truly non-human, but there's a lot of like eyebrow raising stuff with that. I think it is weird that the sphere is sitting there at this conference and they're all just standing around it, and we're all speculating on what it could be or what it couldn't be. And there's pictures of even like Representative Burleson right near it, and he's looking at it like real weird. because when you get up close on it, it looks so man-made. It looks like a metal sphere that somebody's drilled some holes in and made some carvings on. And it's exactly what it looks like. And it looks like any kind of standard sheet metal that you would see laying around any metal shop. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be an asshole. I'm just saying it's just what it looks like. I can't help it if I see a metal ball and I'm saying, yeah, that looks like something, a piece of sheet metal that somebody's rounded out and they put some carvings on. So, but man, is it getting the attention? I mean, who would have thought, front row, you would see one of our Congress people and then sitting next to Stephen Greer, and those two are hobnobbing it. I didn't know. I mean, Stephen Greer always talks about, he's saying he has Washington contacts, oh, well, I know this person on the Hill and I know this person on the Hill and I'm getting them in contact with it. And you don't know if you're supposed to take Stephen Greer for real or not. But yeah, they're like hanging out at it. And oh my God, it's like 2.5 hours long too. So, I mean, I'm trying my best to get through it.
More than 2.5, but Christina Gomez, one of my friends, who I'm gonna have back on in July, by the way, she streamed it somehow. There's the spear in the middle of the table there, but apparently they didn't give out too much actual evidence.
Yeah, I
to
mean,
the public.
that's just like the thing with it. It's like I want to just write it off, but then at the same time, we have Congress members.
There's Burleson there.
When we are at war. We are at war essentially by proxy or not. We are at war in Iran, and we have nuclear sites in Iran that are having bombs dropped around it. And we're getting ready to have another Chernobyl event out there. And we have a congressperson at a conference about a sphere that may or may not be of human origin. Just think about that.
Yeah. Quite an outfit on this reporter.
Dude, when I saw that, I was like, what am I watching? She's not wearing a bra or anything. I'm
I
like,
know. And there's this is quite a story.
it was
but yeah.
weird. I'm like, how could you imagine somebody coming on like Fox News or CNN and doing like a conference, and one of the ladies walks out and she's not wearing anything on, like, no support, no nothing. It's just like, what in the hell is going on?
Very interesting stuff. I wonder who's funding that. Who's funding that whole conference?
I mean, it's all Jaime Maussan, right? It's all his production network. Yeah. Because you see backdrops and everything of his. Apparently, he's got some big production company down there or something. So
that makes sense. So he probably brought in all these people, but yeah, it's funny. We thought that World War III might be starting a couple nights ago, but thank God it didn't. But there's still very high tensions, and supposedly the U.S. controlled the skies of Iran, and we have one of our congressmen in Mexico checking out a spear, for better or worse. So there's where we are right now in 2025.
I mean, I would have never guessed it at this time. You would think it would be all hands on deck. But it just goes to show you how in moments like this, like Congress has nothing to do if you're not, I guess, part of any kind of defense appropriations of any kind. Hey, Avery. There you go. I don't know how to pronounce your last name, or I would say it, Augenball. But
yeah, I hope you're talking about the reporter. But yeah, she was. That's Mexico for you.
Yeah, but no, I mean, it is wild when you look at like where people are in society as far as like stacking up the priorities. And I never thought we would see a congressperson at something like this, that it was more of it seemed like a conference for hype, right? I don't know if they really, and again, I've not watched the whole thing, so I don't want to come down on it too hard yet. I'd like to watch more of it. I only watched some of the initial conference speakers talking about them retrieving the objects, and some of it seemed coordinated. I'm sorry, but maybe that's on purpose. but like one of the guys that was there during one of the retrievals, he was wearing a yellow shirt in the retrieval, and then all of a sudden he comes out there with a yellow shirt on, just like he was wearing that day, and he's wearing like an Indiana Jones sack around his shoulder, and I don't know. I just was like, it seemed very produced, man. I mean, I'm trying
Yeah.
my hardest with
And
this,
he
but
said he actually still has his teeth, and all the reports that he suffered physical issues due to coming in contact with the thing were fake.
mhm, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I guess we'll have to see. I would like for them to actually stop standing around it and let's like grab it and let's like really put some analysis to it. I think that's where it gets a little weird. I've heard Gary Nolan talk a little bit about the sphere and saying that I can't remember exactly what Gary Nolan said, other than I think they reached out to him or someone had commented to Gary on X and said, "Hey, why don't you help him out, Gary? Why don't you do some analysis of the sphere?" And I think he replied something with like, "I'd be interested, but I think there's other people in the scientific community too that can do it as well." So I don't know. I mean, I'm open minded. I'm willing to hear whatever's going on there, but uh, again, I've not seen anything to really knock my socks off other than it's a metal sphere and there's some video of it flying around in the sky. Some of the video looks very good. Now, some of the video where you can see all of the sky, which I think was like one of the first ones, you could see all of the sky and you could see a lot of scenery. And if that was flown by a drone, it would have had to been a drone way, 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 way up, way up. So, and have it tethered. Some of the newer ones just kind of show a sphere going back and forth. And that supports the theory that someone just has it on a line or a string or something, because it just looks like they're zipping it back and forth over a field. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's something we can keep watching. But hey, I mean, as long as they have all those big names at the conference, you have to give it some credence, right? They got a congressman to show up. So, I mean, that's pretty impressive. So you got to give them credit there.
yes, and the possible hybrid, Stephen Greer, keeping an eye on things for everybody. But you're right. There's been a lot of hybrid talk lately, and that's something that's is very possible if NHI does exist and has made contact with us somehow. Even just Jesse Michaels has even hinted at, not hinted, but actually talked about the possibilities of some type of connection has happened there with humans and
Yeah.
the
And
NHI.
yeah. And I mean, that was one of the statements. And again, I've not watched the whole thing on Area 52 with Chris Ramsey's show. And this is no shade on Chris Ramsey. He seems like a great person. I just don't watch his show a lot because at first, when he started launching, a lot of his content was people I'd already heard and they had already been like, let's say when Lou came out, Lou was out pitching his book, Imminent, right? And Lou had done everyone's podcast. So I've already watched Lou on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 podcasts. And then if Chris is having him on Area 52 for like the sixth or seventh time in a row in 2 months, it's just overkill at that point. So I mean, like Chris was having on a lot of people, it seemed like there for a while to me, where I'd already heard their story quite often, and I'm just like, I don't know what net new information I'm going to get from this. Now, John Ramirez is not someone I've heard from a lot. If he has a lot of content out there, I've not seen it. So this would actually be probably my first introduction to really watching Area 52. He has a neat little skiff area where he has it set up, and that's his production area. But this
Yeah.
John Ramirez is apparently somebody who people have been trying to get him sat down for an interview to talk about stuff like hybrid situations and stuff like that.
Yeah, it seems like there's definitely some money behind that guy because he's a hypnotist and he kind of came out of nowhere and suddenly he's getting all of the big people for in-person interviews. So I know a lot of them aren't going to fly in to Canada for cheap because he's from not too far from me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, from around
Yeah,
the
I knew
Cecil
something
area.
about him, like he's a magician and he does
Yeah,
magic, but
magician. Sorry, not hypnotist, but maybe he
yeah.
does hypnotize a bit too. But yeah, who knows? I'd never heard of him though. So definitely, he's doing a good job.
Yeah, but one thing to touch back on too, talking about the Arizona thing that I mentioned with Tim Phillips. So Tim Phillips said in the 80s when he was stationed in Arizona, they saw the F-117. They thought it was a UFO. It wasn't. Then they disclosed to them it was an F-117. Okay. Well, I see a post from Jesse Michaels that, and if it's released, I've not watched it yet. Again, I've not had time to. Um, there's been again so much content this week, but apparently he's saying he posted yesterday that today Ross Coulthart may have located a UFO base in Arizona. Um, so again, I go back to
Yeah,
this about about the F-117 with Tim Phillips in Arizona. It may be a base. I just don't, and it may be a UFO base, meaning those are unidentified. Look, when they saw the F-117 in the 80s in Arizona flying around, it was a UFO. What does UFO mean? It doesn't mean alien. UFO means that is an unidentified object in the air. They did not know how to identify it. They didn't know if it was a 737, if it was a normal commercial liner that just looked weird due to some parallax or something. They had no clue. So it was a UFO. So there may be a UFO base in Arizona, but I think we need to understand what that means, the semantics of what that means, a UFO base. We may have a
and
base in
if
Arizona,
they're
and
talking
it's just
about
one of
that,
our
there's
own
not
stuff that
much.
we test stuff.
Exactly. And there really isn't much to this episode as far as evidence presented. It's basically this guy with the hat telling stories about being chased with guns and stuff, which but with no real backup of it. And then they walk around this fenced off area where they believe that there is a base because they've seen a
Yeah,
lot of
and what
weird
I'm
stuff.
wondering is though, this may be newer content though. I've seen that one. I think what Jesse was posting about yesterday, there's supposed to be maybe some new content coming out. Um, he's saying that Ross has some compelling video and footage, and he also discusses Navy Science and Tech Director Nat Kobit's end of life UFO confession. So apparently, there's some new content out from Coulthart. I've not YouTube searched it yet, but all I'm saying is in Arizona. Well, let's just look at it this way: someone's discovered a UFO base in Nevada. Okay, there probably is one out there, and it's called Area 51 because we fly some crazy shit out of Area 51 that we don't want a lot of people to see. And fine, if you want to call it a UFO, call it a UFO. I mean, but you know, that would technically have been a true statement if someone said, "Hey, back in the 80s, I found a UFO base in Nevada." They did. You did find it. Good job. You were out there hiking and they went to go fly, some experimental aircraft and you saw it and you didn't know how to identify that flying object. So you called it a UFO and you saw that it was coming from a base out there. All true statements. You found a UFO base in Nevada. So if Coulthart comes out and says he's found a UFO base in Arizona, he may have. Um, it doesn't mean I think people jump immediately to extraterrestrial. And I'm not saying it can't be that. I'm just saying, the first most prosaic explanation would be we are testing things still in Arizona, just like what Tim Phillips saw in the 80s with the F-117. We're still testing shit out there. And no, we are not careful when we test it because if we were, we would have not let Tim Phillips see it in the 80s when he was not read in on the F-117 program. So no, we are not always 100% careful of when we go fly an object in the sky, we are 100% sure that no one will have eyes on it that they're not read in to have eyes on it. And so it does happen when the government flies something experimental that sometimes people see it. And I think that's something, a reality some of us are going to have to get used to, is that sometimes stuff is out there and it shouldn't be. That's always been my issue with the Tic Tac UFO in '04 is I would always say there's no way that they would fly a Tic Tac around David Fravor, right? They would never fly a Tic Tac around David Fravor without reading him in on that program. But then when I start hearing these witness testimonies that they're saying, yeah, I wasn't read in and I saw an experimental aircraft, it does make you wonder that, well, maybe they do. Maybe I'm giving too much credit to these private contractors. Let's say Lockheed Martin was out there testing something and they didn't realize the Navy was going to be right next door doing one of their tests the same day. Okay. So that's where I think I give too much credit to the intermingling that I think should be going on, because we already know from 9/11, right? 9/11, when it happened, those um, those three letter agencies were not talking to each other. CIA never talked to the FBI, and FBI was never talking to the NSA, and they were never sharing their notes, and that's what caused 9/11 to slip through the cracks, is because people weren't sharing their notes. So I guess it's 100% possible that Lockheed, as a private contractor, could have been testing a Tic Tac out there, and nobody told them, oh, hey, by the way, the Nimitz is going to be right on your doorstep testing as well out there off the coast of San Diego. And, here comes Fravor in his F-18, and the Tic Tac had to hightail out of there, I guess it's possible. So I just think people need to start thinking about that because it's kind of sensational, right? When we see a headline from Jesse Michaels or someone that says, oh, Ross may have found a UFO base in Arizona. It's a little sensational, right? I mean, I think you have to realize that there could still be bases that we are not aware of.
Yeah, and I was just doing some searching while you were talking about it, and there doesn't seem to be anything new posted yet. So
Okay.
maybe this is something that Jesse's going to interview Ross himself about. Maybe it
Yeah,
was a
because
contact in the desert. Who knows?
apparently it is sometimes under his header of reality check is where sometimes where they put his stuff. Now, yeah, to your point, the only thing I saw pop up new, is the Bledsoe interview. So I'm not seeing anything of what Jesse Michaels is talking about. So I am definitely going to be on the eye out about that. But Jesse even brings up, now that I noticed his post, he even brings up the Boogosphere. So even Jesse's bringing it up now. So everybody's bringing up the sphere. So I don't know. Oh my gosh, if that ends up being fake and everybody jumps on the sphere bandwagon, that's gonna be a rough one to get over, because you got a lot of people jumping on board, right? But it does seem like there's a few people wanting to keep their distance from it. Like, I get the feeling, I don't know this for sure, but I get the feeling Dr. Gary Nolan wanted to keep his distance from it. And remember, he brought that up at the Soul Foundation one time because of him getting burnt in that documentary he did with Greer, where Greer gave him the little being, where Greer was pretty much positing that it was an alien, and Dr. Gary Nolan, I think, found otherwise. And then there was this big debate after that where Greer was saying that Nolan was turned and he's CIA and it was alien, but he couldn't say it because the CIA turned him, and it got really nasty. So that may have made Dr. Gary Nolan a little gun shy about wanting to analyze things going forward. So maybe that's why he wants to stay away from the Boogosphere. I have a belief that it's probably one of the people that I've heard him called the Stephen Greer of the Latin community is Jaime Maussan. Jaime sometimes, and again, I have no beef on Jaime, But I think there's some people who, as soon as they see Jaime Maussan get attached to something, they get a little weird. Like they're like, oh, that guy's attached to it, and you see them get a little bit gun shy with like completely believing what they're being told, because I think Jaime grabs onto some things that are a little sensational. So
Makes sense. Well, is that pretty much it for today?
yep.
Well, fans, you got another interview with the Disclosure Team people coming up soon.
I should. So I mean, I've not heard anything else yet contrary to that.
So that's
But
coming
yes,
up.
we are still on for tomorrow night. That would be with Carolina and Vinny. I think was going to join too from Disclosure Team
From the Disclosure
and
Team.
Disclosure Ladies.
Awesome.
So we'll see. I'm pretty sure we're still on, but that should be a good one as well. So.
All right, folks, and we're going to be posting a lot of content on the Hannibal TV UFO channel, which is going to be a custom channel for UFOs. There's also the Hannibal TV UFO Facebook page. So follow both of those because we'll be transitioning all the UFO content onto there. I appreciate everyone following us, and put in the comments of this what topics you want us to cover, because we do cover the news topics, but if there's any classic topics, I always like searching for stuff. And yeah, if you're not looking up, you'll never see a UAP. So keep your eyes peeled.
Good point.
Casey, I'll let you close this out.
Yeah, good point. If you're not looking up, you'll never see a UFO. I'm looking up all the time, I promise you. Would love to see one. Would love to see something I can't identify. But yeah, I like that idea, Hannibal. Yeah, definitely put it in the comments if you want us to cover it, and we'll give you our take on it. And we'll try to stay connected on some of these stuff, like especially if Coltart is released some alien based in Arizona. Or alien base in Arizona. We'll try to keep up on some of this stuff for next time. So, but yeah, definitely comment. Let us know what else you want to see an analysis on.